we had a run-in with a media request, and I had a journalist break in the group. Well, I'd say covertly joined us without really disclosing who they were from the Edmonton Journal, and I got a few pieces in the media, and it probably scared my volunteers a bit. So we got really stringent, but.
All right, MacKenzie Wilson, how are you today, my friend? Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Russell. Happy to be here. Let's answer some questions and go where the conversation goes.
Look at you. You're just like Mr. All Professional Business. And it's just like, let's just get after it here, brother. It's just like, there's no small talk. No, how's it going? How's the weather? We're Canadians, so we got to talk about the weather. We got to talk about hockey. We got to talk about housing and interest rates. Let's just skip the weather and all that other kind of stuff. Hey, let's just get right after it, eh?
Well, we can hop wherever you want, man. I mean, Flames fan here. I got nothing really to talk about there. Born and raised Albertan, and also a Prairie boy as yourself. But do you got any stakes in the playoffs right now? Are you an Oilers fan?
Well, I am, obviously, because, first of all, I'm from Saskatchewan, and our only professional sports team, really, we grew up watching the Oilers in the 80s, right? So I love the Oilers, but I've been out in Vancouver. I have to be a Vancouver Canucks fan. I do have an Edmonton Oiler hoodie, and it's the orange one. And my wife just will not let me, I have to hide it, because if it comes out of the closet somewhere, my wife will just literally have a gag reflex when she sees it. So.
Oh man. Okay, cool.
And I think she made the comment is, if you ever want to, you better not ever wear that thing.
Love it.
If you know what I mean.
You probably look like a pylon wearing it, right? So
I do. Right. First of all, welcome to the show. And there's some really fun, interesting developments that are going out there for you. You've been getting on some media, and you've been, our government-funded body of the CBC has been reaching out to you and asking for some opinions on things and stuff like that. And we're going to get into that. I 100% want to get into that, because it's a hot topic. Tenants, landlords. Not that we should be at odds, but right now, the way it is in Canada, we're a little bit at odds with things, and part of it's because of housing policy, part of it's because of immigration, part of it's because of interest rates, part of it's because of inflation. There's a whole bunch of reasons why, but and we'll get into a lot of that. But what I really wanted to do, and we'll dive deep into today, and we're going to talk a lot more about. And here's the note I wrote down is we're going to talk a lot about the management side of things. We're going to talk a lot about tenant management. We're going to talk a lot about the operation of your business. And most people are thinking I'm going like Charlie Brown's teacher. Wah, 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 wah. Here's the thing, gang. The management of your tenants. I am out there, and I will publicly say that our tenants are our assets. It's not the house. We rent the house from the bank. The tenant is the asset. They're our customer. And the better you manage the tenant, the better you manage the operation of your business, the greater chance you have of success. Now, anytime I ever talk about tenant management or business operations, it's one of those things that everybody needs, but nobody wants. Everybody wants the exciting new financing package, and everybody wants how to raise capital, and everybody wants to know how to buy it. Nobody wants to know how to actually manage the property. And I suffice to say that that's the most important part of the business, is the management of the tenant and the management of the relationship within the business and the operation. How do you feel on that, first of all?
Yeah, Russell, I'll riff on that. And what I would pivot to and positioning that conversation is, right now there's a huge delta and difference between supply and demand. We have all the demand and no supply to meet that demand. And of course, some conflict and things are happening in the media talking about that. But fundamentally, the relationship between a homeowner and a renter, or a landlord and a tenant, is a mutually beneficial relationship. We each need each other. And you mentioned them as your customer. I'd even take it one step further and call them a client. Client means that you have a long-term relationship with this customer, and that it is really your revenue source. You could have the perfect property. It could be, downtown Edmonton in the Ice District. And we'll get Calgarian here saying this. It could be the perfect property, all the right amenities. And if you put the wrong tenant in there, not only are you losing money each month, you're getting a pile of stress, and it's going to cost you money to fix that problem. And doesn't matter what the property is. So it is so important on that revenue stream that you make the right decision up front to find the right fit to place in your rental as a client and as a tenant. So
yeah. And I often go back always to they're actually a partner in the business, to be honest. And I go
100%.
back to, and I probably should have it memorized, but I don't. But there was a way back in the day, Tim Johnson coined a definition of a tenant, and they're really a partner in the business with you. They are, it's a business relationship, as important as your accountant and your bookkeeper and your appraiser and your insurance provider.
Yeah.
Your tenant is probably one of the most important people. They're paying you in some cases, $50,000 a year. How would you treat a $50,000 a year client? How would you treat a $50,000 a year partner in the business? You treat them very well at the same time, but at the same time, you don't become a doormat too, right?
Yeah, there's an art form or a really good approach to being firm but approachable, and really when you go and my big MO, and as you said, all these awesome real estate strategies, they sound beautiful, they're exciting, give the title sexy. Ultimately, they all come back to some sort of buy and hold, appreciation over a long time, and principal pay down, and you need a tenant to make that whole strategy work. So it's a cornerstone of this whole real estate investing vehicle or industry that we're in. And so there's two ways to look at tenant screening. The first part is always the numbers game. That part's black and white. That's actually pretty easy to figure out.
Yep.
There's some numbers and ratios. You look at the credit score and dive into the credit score, not just look at the number itself, because there's more to than just the number. But, I'm losing my train of thought. Let me just try to rapid fire this off. But the other part of it is you're entering into a long-term business relationship with this individual. So you need to find a good framework, a good fit for yourself. And that's going to be different for your type of work style versus perhaps how you work, Russell, how I work, and somebody else. Yep. A tenant could be good for you, bad for me, and okay for the other person.
Yep. So gang, we're putting it out here right now. We're both on a mission to reframe the conversation. It's no longer landlord and tenant. It's client and rental housing provider. That's what we are. We are rental housing providers, and we have clients. We don't have tenants, and we're not landlords. So we're on a vendetta, my friend. We're on a mission to change the vernacular. Rental housing providers and clients. Okay. So should I get off my soapbox?
No. Let's add on to that. And the reason I wanted to switch from customer to client is a relationship, and customer is transactional. McDonald's has customers. You come in, you get your burger, you're out. This is a long-term relationship, and if it's built well and there's good trust, communication is going to save your bacon every time of the day. And what I mean by that is, most of my tenants, I know some of them, at least half of them, are actually better communicators than I am. They let me know when there's problems going on, so I can be proactive and fix things. And they're also really, I'm going to say, very patient with me, because I'll go and say, listen, I heard you. I can't answer the issue right now, but we can look at it tomorrow, assuming it's a non-pressing issue. But just knowing that there's that open two-way communication and setting expectations, they're always appreciative, and they're willing to give me more latitude to get problems solved. And think about it, we own depreciating building an asset. There's always going to be something that needs to be fixed. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, MacKenzie, like, honest to goodness, I think we've set a record here for 8 minutes in, and we've dropped the most amount of fire, and we've dropped multiple bombs here. And I'm saying 100% from you, my friend. You're bringing the goods here. So, let's take a step back.
Let's do it.
For people that don't know you that well yet, but I'll give you credit. You're out there shaking the tree, and you're getting on the podcast, and you're making. I'm gonna
stand up for you, just like you are.
Yeah, I'm on a sit stand chair kind of. I do have it's one of those chairs that has a wobbly base to it, so I'm active, right? So.
Perfect. Well, and I want to talk with my hands and be in the conversation. I'm sitting back. No, let's deliver here. So yeah.
So let's for people that maybe don't know you, let's go into the Wayback Time Machine.
For sure.
That's my Wayne and Garth imitation. What's kind of your backstory? Where did you kind of get the bug for all of this? Where did kind of the inspiration for you kind of dive into this? And let's tell a little bit of the story, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. Great questions, Russell. Let me just think. Well, I'll give you the cold note, and you can dive into wherever you want. So 2016 was the birth of my first son, Bowen. And when we found out we were pregnant in 2015, I stopped living 6 months in advance and planning out my weekends to being like, oh, I have another life I've got to look after. So I wish I could say I had the foresight to want to have done this on my own, but certainly becoming a family man and having kids was really my catalyst. At the same time, my mom had just joined Keyspire. It would have been back in the day. And I had just finished reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. So real estate was the choice of investment vehicle. I knew nothing. I wanted to do buy and hold real estate. And I also knew that I was scared to death of defaulting or having a property destroyed and really falling tens of thousands of dollars into arrears or debt or defaulting on a second mortgage. So that was, well, I figured, you know what, landlording's been around forever. Even the term landlording, like it goes back to what, the medieval times, and it has, and that's why I want to switch off of it. And as we talked about renting housing providers, because of that conversation of we're lord over somebody, which is definitely not the case. But it's just, it was a huge fear. But I figured, well, this business has been around forever. People are doing it successfully. There has to be something out there I don't know, some system or process to reduce that risk. And so I just really had an onus to like get really deep and granular. And and I can tell you that the epiphany moment, I realized I was doing things a little bit differently too. But ask me questions from there. Oh, I'm born and raised from Calgary as a way. So go Flames.
Yeah, go. Hopefully not out of the city. If you guys can actually get a stadium there, right? So there's another.
I'm hoping, man. Fingers crossed. Yeah, that's an interesting conversation right there.
Yeah. How are things in downtown Calgary now? And again, I'm very pro Alberta. I know Alberta. I follow everything that's going on in Alberta, but I don't live there, and I'm living in Vancouver. Is it what we see from the media and putting it out there about what's happening in downtown? And here's the thing: is every major city in Canada right now, the crime's quite ridiculous a little bit. Is it as bad as they're portraying in Calgary, or what's your take out there?
And Russell, you're talking just like crime statistics, or I know like our biggest thing was like the vacancy in the office towers downtown.
Well, the downtown vibe, the homelessness, the crime, like everybody thinks that everybody's getting stabbed on public transits and stuff like that. Like, is it bad, or does it need to be cleaned up, or how is it?
Good question, Russell. I would say from an outside looking in, or from being in it, it's the downtown in Calgary here. It's fun to visit on the evenings and weekends, but it's also kind of like because we don't quite within our core have a mix of residential. It's mostly all commercial and office space with retail on the bottom. We got hit really hard going back to 2014, 2015, right? When we had the oil patch kind of recession there, fading into COVID there for a few years. We had a 3%. I think we were over a third at one point. It was over 33% vacancy of office towers. And when we had that prolonged year over year, it affected the city council's budget, right? And what they can offer. And so it was described like a ghost town for a while down there. Things have come back. Also knowing that we've got this new trend of working from home that COVID brought, which I think is a positive. It has removed more demand out of needing an office space. So there is still a surplus of what they've built up. I know they're looking at some options to repurpose some of that into residential or some affordable housing type initiatives, which I think is great. But honestly, just like kind of casual and cultural, like it's the same old. It's still fun hanging around. It's getting more of that vibe back. I mean, I have a bunch of my friends that are talking about going and doing Stampede this year, and we've kind of, I've done it my entire life, so it's nothing special. But now we're like, it'd be kind of fun to do the chucks and go out and all that stuff. So there's maybe because there's a COVID break and everything else, there just maybe seems to be a bit of the revitalized cowboy get your boots on kind of way here in Calgary. Yeah,
well, Calgary has always been a fun vibe to it, always, and maybe it's starting to get some of its swag back. And I think a lot of that has to do with, how people are feeling. The economic, if people are working and people are making, good money and things like that, they spend it and they have some fun and they let off some steam and all that kind of stuff. And Calgary was always that place where you'd always go. I'm from Saskatchewan. Calgary would be always the place you'd go to just let off some steam, right? It was just fun, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's just a little indication, especially now. I believe Calgary is really starting to diversify itself. It's attracting a lot more industry. It's not just oil and gas. It's not just corporate head offices. There's a lot more that Calgary now has to offer. And I think they've done a very good job of rebranding itself and attracting people like, rightfully or wrongfully, I believe what the government has been doing, which I said they should have been doing this since 2018, is sitting out there aggressively marketing and say, Alberta's open for business, and then doing very aggressive, come to Alberta, come to Calgary, in that. And we see this out in Vancouver all the time, this kind of stuff. So I appreciate it.
And, on that note, I was in Toronto at our SingleKey office in October, November last year for a couple trips, and you can see right in the GO train, they've got these like huge murals of the Rocky Mountains, and it says Alberta is calling. Like they're calling for jobs and everything. So yeah.
And it's not just a bunch of rednecks and oil workers anymore. Like if you go there, it's got an interesting vibe to it. It's got a different vibe. Now, some of the Albertan purists might not like that, right? But it's starting to get younger. It's getting hipper. It's getting a lot more diversified, which is great, which is needed, because it's catching up to what Canada is, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, totally. So I know we started talking about your story. I didn't want to gloss over that. So okay.
Oh, good. Yeah.
2015. It's funny, and for those of you listening, I'm making the gesture of holding a little baby in your hand. It's amazing what happens when those little babies get put in your hand, and then all of a sudden the Peter Pan syndrome kicks in, and go, holy crap! I actually have to grow up now, right? And then you're
game changer.
Yeah, and you're now responsible for other human beings in your life, and it's just like, holy crap! What am I going to do when I grow up? And so you had that moment. Tell me a little bit about the journey. So you kind of, your mom joined the Keyspire group. You kind of were following from the outside looking in. What was your journey like?
Yeah, for sure. So that happened, and it kind of was like, all right, this is the way I want to do it. So the first property we bought, which is the house I'm still in right now, house hacking or whatever you want to call it now. I have a legalized basement suite. So mortgage help right off the bat, that was huge for us. And I was taking a bunch of hours on YouTube, everything I could learn about screening the tenants, because that was my big fear factor. And I think it was a really good step to have done it living with the tenant downstairs, because by nature, living at the property, I had always kept an eye on it. So if I had done something wrong, I could be quick and be very proactive on resolving the issues. So I think if someone's looking to get in the game and you don't mind sharing quarters, obviously if it's a separate suite, it's a great way to get into being a landlord and managing that tenant-client relationship without making too many mistakes right off the hop. So that happened. I discovered this thing called RAIN. There's these what's behind the curtain events, and perhaps these acre and all these events, and that was like drinking from a fire hose. Really enjoyed that. And then I was at one of these events in Toronto, and we're on a Saturday night, and there's a bunch of real estate investors around. And one of them was was a Diamond Club. Is it member or whatever, the pin? And I can't remember, is that 100 or 150 doors they had under their preview or ownership. And so I had a lot of respect for this individual, and we're sitting down chatting, and I had my binder open, and I was going through all these things I do for screening tenants and how I market and qualify and check this and check that and landlord checks and employer checks. And he goes, wow, you do all that? And I was just like, well, wait a minute.
You don't?
It was like, it hit me like a Mack truck. And I was like, well, what do you do? And then at that moment, I'm like, okay, so maybe the way I'm operating is a bit different than everybody else. And so I started with two of the guys that are over here in Calgary. One was up in Edmonton. We started doing meetups as well. We're talking off air about these two gentlemen, Brad Price and Phil Wong, great guys. So we did in-person meetups for a while, just because I knew I didn't know anything. I knew the tip of the iceberg. I knew there's a lot more that I needed to learn. I needed veterans in the room that had the scars that could showcase and explain to me the pitfalls and how to avoid them. I just wanted to rub shoulders and just be a sponge. So I wanted to put people in the room together, and you'd be amazed some of the brainstorming that comes out of these rooms when you've got people like-minded, entrepreneurial type of spirit, raising the money, buying the doors, problem solving the fly to make the business work. You just can learn a ton of information. Did that for a bit, and then I started this YouTube channel, and it was solely called Find Great Tenants, because that was how, like you said right at the beginning of the show, That's how important it is. It's the most cornerstone part of being an investor or a landlord or a rental housing provider. If you get that part of the puzzle right at the beginning, that's 90% of the work of that tenancy. The rest of it is generally smooth sailing, deal with maintenance, your inspections, your lease renewals, some appreciation at Christmas time, and perhaps for the birthday for the client, and you carry on. So I joined this Facebook group, which is now the Alberta Landlord Community, which I run it with a great team of volunteers. So I'm one of the co-founders, but I was given full control of it back in 2020. And now we're the largest. We're almost at 4,500 members. But when I joined it at the time, I had shared my very first YouTube video, and it was how to avoid a fake credit score. And basically, I had like a 3-minute video I did in real time. I showed how easy it was for people to use like a Photoshop and document a fake credit score from like Credit Karma or Borrowwell. And I got kicked out of the Facebook group within 12 hours.
Yeah. So you guys are tight actually with posting a video from YouTube on that group, by the way. I've tried to. I've been very I've been not banned. I've been put in the hold pattern.
Yeah. So you know what? And to be fair, and we're going to make some changes. But you know, I've got a set of volunteer landlords that help me out. We had a run-in with a media request, and I had a journalist break in the group. Well, I'd say covertly joined us without really disclosing who they were, from the Edmonton Journal, and I got a few pieces in the media, and it probably scared my volunteers a bit. So we got really stringent, but I think to a fault though, because there's really good conversations to be had when we share good information, which is part of this podcast when I'm on with you, Russell. Yeah, and we're going to talk more about it. And just as an FYI, guys, this is the Facebook community. I belong to this community. I think it's fantastic. It's an amazing resource. There's that handsome guy right there. That guy, that'd be MacKenzie right there. There you go. Yeah.
There's a tremendous amount of resources, and the files on here are fantastic for, like, honest to goodness. It's like page after page of documentation and wonderful discussions, and you have to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt at times, because there's everything from, people with hundreds of places to people that are an accidental landlord and had their first place, and they're just, oh my goodness, what will happen who's going to change the furnace filter, and stuff like that. So it's a wonderful place. Like I strongly encourage people to jump in, even if you're not participating, just getting the vibe on the street. And this is where I get a lot of my sometimes my rental information about what's going on in the marketplace, about like, what are people doing? Like, what is the market doing? Is it hot? Is it cold? Or what are people renting for? And I'll tell you, just by and large, the majority of landlords are way under rented. Now, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to get some hate mail or some people that'll say that is, why are you telling people to raise the rents? Gang, if you had a national perspective like I do, Alberta rent is extremely affordable compared to a national perspective. And in my personal opinion, that's also because it's not rent controlled. And if I was a tenant, I would want to be in a market that didn't have rent control, because typically rent controlled market or non-rent controlled markets are actually lower, non-rent controlled markets, because it's just based upon market value, right? So anyways, I digress.
Totally. All good.
Okay, so you started that group and that community. Are you still an active investor? Are you still buying yourself? You made a fairly sizable shift in your status of employment a few years ago. Tell us about that process.
Yeah. So I'm still investing. I've been meaning to start raising money. But truthfully, I haven't got around to it. I've just been busy with other things, so it's kind of on a pause right now, but always open to a good deal. It just, so joined the Facebook group, got kicked out within 12 hours, but luckily the guy that started it, who's my partner, Chris Noble, a retired RCP officer, and whether it was by luck or intentionally, well, he was intentional, but what he did really, really well that created that community was we were very diligent up front to make sure only landlords came into the conversation. And by the nature of having a landlord-only kind of culture and conversation, people were more willing to be transparent and vulnerable and ask difficult questions about the business. And just to kind of give context to what that really means is I have a lot of respect for anyone that will take it upon themselves to take a large capital investment, i.e. a down payment in a reserve fund, and then find a way to entrust and vet someone with a very short period of time, 2 or 3 or 4 days, to give complete access control of that asset. It is probably the most expensive thing you own to a complete stranger. So to do that process and to do it well, and so you've got customer service or client management, however defining this right now, Russell, as well as all the stuff comes along with owning a second property and the financing and the capital investment. And it's a teeter-totter. And the investors that do it well figure out how to balance this. And that comes back to the operational conversation. But what is good about the conversation in the Facebook group is you get the collective wisdom of thousands, well, 4,000 landlords now. I don't even know what that would equate in terms of hours of experience that we're all cross-sharing. But you get insight on situations, hopefully you never have to deal with yourself. But if you do, if someone's got that battle scar out there, don't call it battle scar, a lesson learned they're willing to share with you to avoid that same headache.
Yep. Yeah. And,
it's pretty powerful.
And I remember we had a conversation probably 3-4 years ago now. And you were, I think you were just right in that cusp of potentially, and I think it was TELUS that you were working with, and you were pretty close that you were thinking about leaving the job, and we were having some really good dialogue and conversation. So did you leave your job, and what are things looking like for you now? Yeah,
Russell, if someone 5 or even 10 years ago would have told me that a YouTube resume and a Facebook resume would have got me a director role at a tech startup, I would have laughed at you. So obviously I got back in the Facebook group. Eventually, Chris had different things he wanted to do, so gave me control of the group. He still definitely hangs out and supports here and there. But that turned into, I started bringing in sponsors and just different industry providers who provide value back to the community. And one of them was being SingleKey. And I mean, me being an IT and management background, and I love data. So more data I can see is the better. And SingleKey has really, they had a full digital application, and their report was the most comprehensive in the industry. At that time, the only other competitor was Neighborly, which we actually acquired last fall, and happy to talk about that as well. But the difference was you'd get a one-page summary of someone's credit score from Neighborly. The average tenant or application would have 3 to 4 pages of credit score information on a SingleKey report. So you'd see all the trade lines, payment history, inquiries, just everything, a really clear breakdown of this person's financial history. And you get a really good sense of their financial habits if they were good with their finances, or perhaps a bit sloppy or not as good.
Yeah. So, and just so, I just pull it up here on the screen for anyone, listening at home. This is SingleKey, and it's one of the best of the best. If not, it's world class on as a tool for every landlord. If you fill a property with a client as a rental housing provider, I'm getting all my vernacular correct. If you're doing that, you absolutely, it's a must that you have to go through and have to pull some kind of a reporting process for everybody. So this kind of you were a Facebook star, if you will, with the Alberta landlord community. You had your YouTube channel going on the side, and then all of a sudden you got some attention from somebody, and they offered you a fairly senior position in their company, didn't they?
Yeah. So let's take a step back. I reached out. I went on this SingleKey website. This would have been like 2020. And I clicked book a call right now. I'm like, okay. I talked to this nice guy named Viller. I'm like, oh, it must be like their customer service rep or guy or whatever, or maybe their manager. Oh, no, I go on LinkedIn, and he was the CEO and co-founder. I was like, well, that blew my mind. I wasn't expecting him to talk to him, but they had just started the company. I think at that time it was Viller and maybe one other individual. So they're like bootstrapping it, getting it done kind of thing. And then I just started providing feedback. I said, hey, it would be great if you had these things. By the way, Neighborly allows tenants to upload pay stubs and copies of their driver's license or passports for photo identification. And 3 or 4 months later, he did it. And I was like, oh, this guy's like listening. So we had a really good relationship to start off with it. And so just kind of, we were working together. He was a partner of the page. And at the beginning of last year, I said, you know what? I was at the place. I've been at TELUS off and on for about 8.5 years. I worked with a lot of great people, but the day job had definitely lost the passion. and I wanted to do this full time. And so I had a conversation with them and another provider or sponsor in our group that was also doing some pretty cool things. And they both said, "Yeah, we'd be happy to take you on. What do you want to do?" I was like, "Well, I don't know. How do you need me? Here's my skills."
Yeah.
But then I was like, "Well, let's put a pause on," because at the same time, I wanted to take the community to the next level. I was trying to spin up and provide more value with a value-added membership and a bunch of other features. So we fast forward into the summer, trying to launch it, and I crashed and burned. A lot of lessons learned. People gave me a lot of feedback, and definitely not afraid of being very straight with some of their feedback when you're typing behind a keyboard. But that's okay. It was good. Hindsight and the lesson learned was I was trying to move off of Facebook at the same time of launching a paid premium membership with resources for landlords. And the demographic of our Facebook group is the people like you, me, Russell, the intentional investors that get the value of these kind of communities. I had an offering for them that was pretty easy. But then the more of a larger demographic, which I would say is the majority, I'm just anecdotally speaking, maybe 60% or of the membership are the accidental landlords. By life circumstance, through maybe job loss, divorce, they're forced into being a landlord. Maybe they're moving to a new city. They don't even want to be there, let alone having to spend the time to learn. They just want to know enough not to make any major mistakes. And so my value proposition was only servicing the intentional. So the value wasn't there for those folks. And since I was trying to get off Facebook at the same time and not having a solution for both parties or two-tier membership, I got roasted.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was I apologize. I never did. I felt for you, and I saw it happening, and I was honest with this. I said I should reach out and have a conversation. And there was a couple things. There's a couple moments that I said I should reach out to MacKenzie. Moment number one was and shame on me for not. I feel bad that I didn't. Point number one was just be careful about your members on that Facebook group posting people's personal information about the tenant bad list and all that kind of stuff like that. That just opens a door like that. I wouldn't want to be an administrator of a group that I wouldn't have that. I wouldn't want that responsibility. That's number one.
Yeah.
The other is too is it's tough transitioning people that were getting something for potentially free to then building a value proposition to have people pay for things like that too. That's a big transition. Mm-hmm. But I think,
especially if they even want it, right? If they're accidental and they just want to know enough not to make any major mistakes, great. And I just want to add on that point too of when I first joined, we had exactly as you said, these do not rent to lists, these you want to call them a blacklist, whatever whatever you call it, it's definitely not appropriate. And that's how I got brought into the media through May and June of last year. So we're talking 2022 with the Edmonton Journal, because they were talking about these things. And for all the ethical reasons they listed, it's full on, it's not ethical, because it's essentially there's no checks and balances for folks who have made amends, have made amends on their past rental experience, paid their debts due perhaps their previous rental and housing providers to get off that list. And if it's privately run, there's no checks and balances in place, it's a bad idea, full stop. And we had this conversation back in 2020 with some lawyers, and that's why we stopped doing it. But what happened though was we still had some remnants left over of those previous conversations that I hadn't deleted. One was a hashtag referring to it. So this journalist basically went and said, we're still currently doing that as of middle of 2022, and we had to stop for almost 2 years. So, but yeah, it's certainly a challenge. But you know what? I've enjoyed the challenge. It's made me feel definitely awkward and stretched me a little bit out of my comfort zone. But I wouldn't change it for anything now, because I look back and I get a ton of pleasure of helping people overcome these challenges and learn. And I fundamentally believe if we've got more good stewardship and grassroots education for the landlords in this great province, they're going to stick around longer, achieve their financial certainty, and in return, because there'll be more of them playing in the market longer, generally providing more affordable units, because we're talking about secondary suites, and I have a whole riff on that. But the state of my point is there'll be more housing available to the Albertans that need it the most.
Yeah, well,
so win-win-win.
You talk, you're starting to combust there, my friend. By the way, it's like when you get excited and passionate, when you get passionate about something, right? right? The bombs just started dropping. So, okay, there's an awful lot to unpack. Okay,
I'm sorry.
No, I know.
I got her.
You're a dream guest, by the way. You're a dream guest. I put the little. Sorry, I'm going to make a golfing reference here. I'm going to put the little white ball on a tee, and you just nail it down the middle, right? So, dream guest. Okay, so this was I was following that too, and so you had this Facebook group and community of rental housing providers that was putting in there. And then, it's one of those things is I get it. We're emotional about it. We have, in some cases, millions and millions of dollars at play here. And you shared it before is some cases you're letting a stranger into your place and then things happen. Sometimes things happen and some people get hurt and some people take it personally and there's a lot of emotion involved. And then some people just want to fight and they just want to this person, watch out for this person and that person. And I totally get it. It's human nature, both directions.
Well, let me add some context to this. I think this is so important, which is what we're seeing right now in the news and media. So if you guys check out a website called the Canadian Rental House Index, the stats for Alberta says currently, as of, let's call this April 2023, Alberta has 406,000 renter households. So, a family renting a house, or it could be a couple renting a one-bedroom condo. Each of those are considered a household. 406,000. Now, from industry stats, our best estimates, and to any major news outlet listening to this podcast, if you want to dive into a survey, please, I would love to see these numbers ironed out. Our best estimates is, well, it varies by province. The market share breakdown of rental housing stock or inventory between a mom and pop landlord versus a multifamily corporation with hundreds or thousands of doors. What do you think that split is of the market share? Who's providing more? And throw me a percentage, Russell.
I'd call it the everyday landlord. The mom and pops would be more, significantly more.
You're correct. Yeah. And the narrative, though, in the media in mainstream thought is the multifamily corporations are the majority of the market share. Yeah. It's not even close.
Yeah, it's teachers, it's your engineers, it's the people filling in the potholes in your street. It's
your
people,
kids coach at practice.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's people It's humans. It's a human business. This is a human being business on both respects.
Totally. Right? So let me reverse engineer those numbers. We're at 406,000 properties across our households across Alberta. Our industry estimates is between 65 to 70% of all that stock is supplied by the mom and pop landlords, the investors like you and me, Russell. That's huge. It's not even close compared to the multifamily. And we estimate on average, the average landlord owns 2.5 doors. Now, I actually think that number is really high because this is our data because we've included some of our multifamily players in there. But let's just take a conservative approach. So if we reverse engineer those numbers off of that 406,000, eventually that gets you back to 105,000 mom and pop landlords in Alberta. And if we look at housing as a need, it's absolutely a fundamental need. Shelter is a basic right. I also struggle with the word housing is a right and shelter is a right because those things are two different things. And housing means many different things to many different people. But where I want to go with this is everyone's society needs housing. At the same time, you look at the needs of society, it's extremely monumentous and complex in all the different needs. Talking about, we haven't even gotten into the healthcare, but just, like students and new people to Canada and low income and this and that. There's just thousands of different unique needs that we have to find solutions for. Yep. But when the private mom and pop or private citizen like you and me is a vast market share provider, right now we're seeing policy and suggestions to push that responsibility onto the private individual who is not equipped with the ability to look after the unique needs of all these different subsets that the society has. But that's the struggle that we deal with right now.
Yeah. And then, and it's an incredible, here's the thing, and I'm not going to be I'm going to be careful. I have my opinion and I'm going to be, I'm going to be measured with my words and be very impactful. Bottom line is we need each other. We truly do. Not 100%. Saying the rental housing providers are more important than the clients, and the clients are more important than the other. We need each other. It needs to be symbiotic, is really what it needs to be.
Mutually beneficial.
100%. And we're not here to say any different. That's 100% our position, and I will go to my grave with that same position, always. However, and on the extremes of both sides, there's bad apples. And there's bad apples on the rental housing providers, and there's bad apples on the client side as well. So, and sometimes those bad apples and those extremes are the ones that taint the vast majority and everybody. To get a good story, let's focus on the extreme, and let's focus on the big challenge. And if it bleeds, it leads, right? So let's put that in the media out there as well, right?
No, I love those points, Russell, and you hit the nail on the head. So importantly about there's a few bad apples in every group, without a doubt. And I use these words so sparingly because I'm trying to stop the general use of slumlords and professional tenants. But these individuals ruin livelihoods on both sides. Whether you've got someone that's just gotten through retirement and they put all their life savings into a few rental properties to enjoy the fruits of their labor, and they get wiped out with one bad choice, or you've got a family trying to get started out and they're living in subpar conditions that you would even put your pet in, for example. Yeah. It's exactly that. And debating if I want to go down this alley or not. Well, there could be solutions in place, but I think there comes, okay, I'm going to leave it at that.
Well, let's talk about so speaking of solutions, let's talk about a couple different things. Now, by and large, the majority of the people that will be watching and listening this will be rental housing providers. By and large, majority. So everybody's sitting there going, okay, got it. I understand. This is important. It's an important conversation. We are now rental housing providers. We provide a service. We have clients. The clients pay for that service. Yeah. We love each other. We all bang a drum, kumbaya, and we all go off into the sunset.
We know the why. Do you want to talk the hell, Russell? Let's get some value back to your viewership.
Yeah, well, that's what I was about to come back to. So how does a rental housing provider help mitigate that they get a good client that rents their property from them? So what is some of the steps that you would say somebody needs to do in order to vet a potential client, vet a tenant, and then also that kind of process as well?
Yeah, that comes down to a good set of proven processes and procedures to go through from marketing and listing your rental, to receiving the leads, to qualification, to doing your due diligence, and then making a final selection off of the applications that you received. So if we start at the front of it, your marketing is really the first take. If at the first impression, if a tenant or a renter thinks you're professional or perhaps unorganized. So the verbiage in that ad, are the photos professional, organized? Is that toilet seat down in the bathroom? If you don't have the ability to take really good pictures, or you're not willing to take the time to research these decent ones on your cell phone, then go on MLS, find the greatest pictures that you love, finding the ad, reach out to that realtor and ask for a referral to the photographer for about $150, $120, maybe even be less than that. They'll come out and they'll do photos. And considering that my units are suited, I only need pictures of really just the inside. I don't need a ton of the backyard. They'll usually cut you a bit of a deal because photos to list a house and photos to rent out a property, you don't need as many. So they can save a little money that way. But have that well presented. Have it in your ads talking about speaking results. Speak what that individual might want or your target demographic for your ideal renter. And at the same time, you're setting expectations of what you expect, and it shows organization. And most tenants understand the process. They get that I'm trying to get approval or access to this house. I expect it's not just to be given out free to the next person that shows up and asks if it's available. So you want to have that ad laid out well. That's kind of your first filter and attraction of qualified leads. Then you've got your pre-screening questions on the initial contact. So whether it be a text message, phone call, email, Facebook Messenger, whatever your ads are, you're going to want to respond quickly. So I have a templated set of pre-screening questions that I can copy and paste and instantly reply. That does two things. I look super professional because I'm quick in the draw. It's easy. It's all done. And I've actually turned tire kicker leads into, I've gotten a tenant of a tire kicker lead. When people receive that tenant inquiry and all they ask is one 3-letter sentence, is it available? People go, oh, you didn't spend the time to tell me anything about what I need from you. I'm just going to skip you and go on the next one. Well, I fire off questions to these ones, and most times they just self-screen out or self-select out, and I don't deal with them. But I've actually gotten qualified leads out of them. They've taken the time to fill it because maybe they just don't know any better. And one of them's turned into a qualified lead. So no, there's a pro tip for you.
Well, and okay, so I'm taking lots of notes here, by the way. So, gang, if you're driving, I encourage you to listen to this again because you're going to be taking lots of notes. Have pen and paper. And it's funny, I just learned this thing called custom keyboard on our iPhones that you literally can just punch in a little code and it could just put in an entire big block of text for you when you're replying to all templates. When all you do all those Facebook things. Is this available? Is this available? You just go in there and Y.E.S exclamation point puts into a long, you can actually it'll type out an entire paragraph for you. And
that's cool. So you basically got shortcuts to templates right directly on the keyboard.
And then all you have to do is...
Russell, I learned something.
Oh, there you go.
I didn't check that out. That's cool.
You have to punch in 4 characters and it just... Because you find yourself doing the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Oh,
okay.
Repetitive.
Okay, I want to just riff off of one thing you did say there a little bit. I 100% agree with every step that you're taking. And I'm going to just put a context and a framework for people. Yeah. Before any of this happens, and I should have asked this better question, have a good property. Like, have a good property in a good area that will attract a good tenant. And that's one of the reasons why I go to new construction is we design the tenant experience first. We actually will put it into our designs that we will take it where the tenants park, will have to walk with their bags of groceries, how many parking spots, how will they interact with each other, separate entrances, separate air exchanges. Like, you design it in advance. And I'll share it with a story. I had a story with somebody the other last week that asked us, can you recommend a property management company to me? And I said, yeah, I absolutely, I can recommend multiple. But first of all, tell me, do you have a good property? Tell me about your tenant profile. Tell me what area of town it is, because I like my property managers and I'm not going to recommend them a bad property. Okay. It starts with the property you actually buy, and very few people will actually give consideration to the property they buy, the tenant profile, and then they match it with the area, and then they match the right house. If you know your tenant profile in the right area and the right house, and you match that all together, you will have a better chance of having a good experience. But if you're trying to put round pegs in square holes, you'll have a horrible, horrible experience. Oh,
absolutely. So Russell, I'm going to ask you a question because I'm pretty sure you were on one of these CD recordings I happened to listen to from way back when. How would you go about discovering your tenant demographic? Let's approach it from 2 ways. One, assuming you already have a property in a specific community, how would you go about researching what that is? Or if you're shopping around for a property and you like a community, but you don't know really that makeup, how would you go about figuring that out?
Well, part of it's a little trial and error. For one, like sometimes you have to, I'm sorry to say this, guys, sometimes you have to buy some really crappy properties in order to figure out what you don't like. Now, I know that's a painful and expensive way to going about that.
Yeah.
The smarter way of doing it, so you can do it the smart way or you can do it the way I did it. The way I did it was the painful, expensive, lost all my hair, bought in the bad properties and the wrong properties with the wrong tenant profiles. So here's the way I'd answer that would be as find out from other landlords what tenants they're just absolutely, what would be your dream clients? Like a rental housing provider. What do you love about your tenants? What are their demographics? And then I typically like to target ones that are in that transition between renting to soon buy a property in a few years, because they understand what it's the responsibility. Maybe they've had, they have a small dog and a small cat, and usually the pets are about 1.5 years before the first children come. They have 1.5. They have 2 cars. They belong to the community. It just have an entire demographic around that I look for. And then what I do is once I understand that, I then find communities that they would want to live in, and then I match up the right housing for them. And with my business partner, my business relationship up in Edmonton, we take a lot of that guesswork out for people. As we actually do that work for people when he presents them a property as the broker. He will present them with a good tenant profile that is matched with the right house in the right area. So it can be designed in advance. So you can do it intentionally or you can do it haphazardly. So I recommend intentionally, right?
Well, so what I did for my first one, my first intentionally purchased investment property, is I went and I sat in the local strip mall in the community, and I just watched the people come and go in the Safeway and the dry cleaners and all the shops down there. And I just took notes, and I was like, okay, this is a blue collar community, which was what I was going for. I was looking for folks that just want to have a good place to call home, that are hardworking and all that. And I just took notes for a day, and it became very clear type of people that are driving, a trade truck or a vehicle with their company logo on the side or whatever. So I mean, that's one way. You literally find a way to sit in the community, observe the traffic coming and going. Yep. You could use, I know I've heard people speak of using like a Starbucks. Starbucks only invests in locations of those higher value clients. Now, will that translate into a demographic that will rent, or perhaps they're already owners? You got to be a little bit devil in the details. And probably the other caveat too to add on that, Russell, is when you think you've figured out your profile, you probably still have to go 2 more layers deeper to really have it identified. Because I had some vague idea, and it wasn't even close until I got into the business as well.
Yeah. Now, and here's the thing: is don't make any misunderstanding of what I'm saying here. I'm not saying one group is better than the other. What I'm saying is to be intentional of matching the demographic and the person with the right property in the right area. I know many rental housing providers that rent in places I would not go because I don't live there. I have management. It's not, things like that. But they do a fantastic job, and they're tough as nails, and they just match the right demographic to the right area with the right property. And they have a fantastic experience because they know the bar they go down to. They know the brand of smokes they have. They know their favorite VLTs that they go to. And honest to goodness, some of those people, if you have conversations with them, have stayed for 15, 20 years in some cases. So it's just a matter of putting the right tenant in the right property in the right area.
Yeah, and so let's give a really clear example. You go up in Grand Prairie, Alberta. Folks, they don't know, that's oil town. It's all primary industries, oil and gas. And most folks that work out in the operation out in the fields drive apparently larger trucks that are 4-wheel drive with perhaps these 30-inch rims and all that. But
dualies, got to have the dualies, brother. Come on, right?
I have the dualies. So if you've got a property up in that neck of woods, you better have a garage or a large on-site parking space for these folks that have these toys. They have large trucks. They probably have a trailer, an RV, maybe a boat or something like that, or they pull a set of dirt bikes. You need to have a garage with those rental properties to meet those needs, to have those items secured, so they'll want to rent from you. I mean, that's just an example.
Yep.
We can go down the road path. Let's move back to.
Let's go back to the screening. But here, I'm not gonna. The last thing I'm gonna say on that point is most real estate investors sleep on the tenant profile conversation. And all I'm doing is I'm just trying to elevate that up, gang. That needs to be your first consideration, is who's going to rent your property. Before you even write an offer, before you even research a community, is there management, what kind of tenant profile? You need to know the customer and the clients first before you even write your offer. And you'll have a better experience if you put the right tenant in the right property. Okay? So enough said. Soapbox off. I
love it.
Okay, you were on pre-screening. So we've talked about your marketing, your ads. They are in alignment. That start talking about that. Then the pre-screening. What are some of the questions you ask about pre-screening? And then after that, what's the next step after the screening?
So I'm grabbing my business card, because on the back of my business card, I have all my pre-screening questions that I give to anyone I meet.
Hang on. Let me get you. Let's get right there.
You can make that work.
Just down a bit. Screenshot. Okay, you're going to send me a picture of that, please. Nice.
I'll give you a PDF.
Nice.
Love it. So hard. Anyways, yeah. So the first part, and if you want, Russell, we can go down to.
Hey, was that your idea? Was that your idea to put that on the business card, or was that SingleKey had that?
No, that was me. This is
good for you.
That's fantastic. I'm all in charge of the content.
Yeah.
Well, because most people do this as a part-time job, right? They have a full-time job, which is great. You need that for the mortgage qualification.
Yep.
But depending on how many doors you have, you might only do this conversation once a year, if that, maybe twice or three, depending on when your vacancies are coming up. And I always wanted to leave a first good impression. I'd get off the phone and I'd be like, oh, shoot, I didn't ask them if they gave proper notice to their last landlord. Yep. Or I didn't ask them about pets. And I was like, then you're going back and forth and asking. It's nice to start the first conversation off. Have know your questions organized. You don't have to think about them either because they're right in front of you. You can just get into the flow and build rapport with that perspective.
And
right off the bat,
from a marketing perspective, well done, my brother. That's brilliant. Like there are people sitting there pull their wallet out and they're asking the questions. Oh, lo and behold, it's MacKenzie's business card at the same time, adding value.
I've gotten a few of these out so far, yeah.
And gang, what I'll do in the show notes, if you're okay with your permission, I'll put a PDF and also maybe have the text of it as well if people want it. But more importantly,
I'm happy. I'll give you a print ready copy. It's business size, so if someone wants to print out 3 or 4 to fit in their wallet and leave them around the house, because that's what I did. It was just have them everywhere.
Okay, well, there's some.
So the first part.
Let's for time. Saying it's a time. Not that I don't want to rush you. What are the most important?
Okay,
questions?
We'll leave them off air. You can add them in. Sure.
Yeah. Do you have the most? What are the most important questions you would want to have? Like right off the top, is there like a big 3, a big 5 that you need to know right off the hop?
The very first question is I go, tell me about yourself, what your needs are. And then I bite my tongue and make it awkward. And it takes a little bit of practice to do that because you give the tenant an opportunity to showcase themselves. And when they start explaining about themselves, they'll typically share information that if they choose to share, then it's fine. But you're not legally allowed to ask because of privacy and all that good stuff. So they might share they have a family, their kids are going into whichever grade, which is all, you can't ask for that stuff. So
you can't officially ask, but if they tell you, that's okay.
Then that's what I'm saying is leave it up to them. Like, okay, just tell me what you want, and then I'll add in. So then after that, I just do a couple of rapid fire of basic logistics, move-in date, how long you want to move in for, number of people, do you have pets, describe your pets. A big one for me is, have you given your current landlord proper notice? A good indicator of how they're going to treat you is probably how they're treating their current landlord. So I want to know someone's following the system. I say, tell me about your employment. You're not allowed to ask them about, are you an electrician or what type of work they do, but you're allowed to ask how much they make, full-time, part-time, commission, seasonal, all the variables around the job you're allowed to ask for. But generally most people just tell you what they do. They're fine with sharing that information, but just to kind of, as a caveat that if you are taking notes right now. Then the other thing I talk about is, by the way, the rent is excellent. Well, here's in Alberta. It will vary by province, but here we can collect a damage deposit in first month's rent. I'll say they are X amount, both are due before possession. Will you have any problem collecting this? Or do you have any concerns? And then they usually say, well, you know what? Yeah, no problem. That's great. Or they might say, well, I can give you this amount now, or can we break up the damage deposit? Or they might explain about their credit score. Oh, and actually, that's the next question too. Is like, by the way, I use background credit checks. Anything I should know, please let me know now. And I always put the caveat: I don't need perfect credit scores. I need people who are honest and transparent. And just because your score is bad, if we can prove that you've shown the ability to always pay your rent on time, I'd actually be very happy to take you, because then you're going to be very grateful. You've gotten into a rental property when you've probably been struggling going from place to place, and you've got probably more of a loyal client.
Yep. Nice. Awesome. So then you get you get a feel for where you're at. Now this is going to segue into the latest controversy, I guess. No, not controversy. The latest reason for MacKenzie to be on the media.
Sure. Yeah.
There are some landlords that are out there that are asking for some very private and sensitive information. And hang on a sec. So here's kind of the article. And let me just share that with everybody here. Here's the article. Here's renters being asked for social insurance number, driver's license, and other sensitive information by some landlords. And it's an entire story, about people that in tight markets and having things. And there's an awful lot of rental housing providers that are probably over. Look at that handsome devil there on the CBC website there.
That's amazing freeze frame. Hey, look.
As well, there's
I'm usually a lot nicer.
The interview here that you had here as well, and I'm gonna ask you some questions about this in a second here. But
it's been a whirlwind. And City News actually interviewed me too and came out. Yeah. I hadn't seen that piece yet, but they asked that one too.
Okay, so So what's going on? So some there are, like out there when you have that 105,000 mom and pop landlords that are rental housing providers, there's probably some uneducated is the way I'll put it. Maybe some people that just don't know the business process or what they can and can't do. So what's going on out there in some cases?
Totally, right? So the whole crux of this article that I got brought in for comment was tenants are being asked for confidential information like a SIN number or a driver's license before they can even book the viewing.
Yeah.
And folks, like just generally putting it across the board, that's totally inappropriate. You can do the questions we talked about to get a good sense to justify your time to go and book the viewing. And it's important to ask these questions too, because maybe they're not a good fit and they want to move in quite a bit later than when your availability date is. And now you've saved yourself both time and a trip across town to do a viewing, which I think is also super important. But in this case, one or two landlords or a couple landlords are asking this information upfront before they even book the viewing. And it's not a good look for the industry. And if you put yourself in the shoes of the tenant trying to find a place, I would not get that information out. And how do you start that first step of building trust and a good business relationship when you're very invasive with the questions that you're asking for?
Yeah, I think, well, here's the thing, and those are important pieces of data to get to eventually make the final decision, but I think people are just misplacing it in the step of the process. Like there's a lot of people right 100%. Now, before I'll even show you this, give me all this information. I'm just like, dude, excuse me. I just sent you a text. I just sent you a note on Facebook and now you're asking for my social insurance number? Right.
It's
back
like
off.
You walk onto the car lot.
Yeah.
You walk in the car lot and before they open the door to look at the vehicles inside the showroom, you have to give them a copy of your driver's license. You'd be thanks, but no thanks, and you'd walk away. So it's the same kind of MO, right? And you know what? Going back to, we have 105,000 mom and pop landlords in Alberta. Most people do this on the side. They have a main job. Have they spent the time to learn about the rules and regulations? Maybe, maybe not. And there's probably a few individuals out there that have seen the headlines that are extremely scared and ultra conservative. And they've perhaps defaulted to a position of being overprotective by asking this information up front. Either way, the short of it is it's not appropriate, so don't do it.
Stop it. If that's part of your business practice, stop yesterday. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
When do you that kind of information is important to eventually get in order to run your final checks and balances. Like, how does somebody go about that? And I would imagine I think you know the tech solution to that probably too, right?
I might, Russell. Yeah. Well, so yes, just to be open, I would suggest using a service like SingleKey or the one of your choice. But let's get through it. So you go, oh, you know what? My favorite question off my pre-screen I didn't even talk about, Russell, is once I get the step of confirming the viewing, I go, great, thanks, Russell. We got a viewing booked for Friday at 7 p.m. Just the one thing to note, though, I understand life's busy. If anything comes up, I just need you to send me a confirmation. Sorry, I'm messing this up. I need you to send me a confirmation 2 hours before by text or phone call to confirm the appointment. Yep. If I don't get this, I consider the appointment canceled because I understand life is busy. Yep. And every tenant agrees to that. So two things happen. You've just embedded a psychological test or a psychology kind of test into your pre-screening. You've given a basic set of instructions for your tenant to follow. Most people have no problem with this. And if they can follow and manage this, it should foreshadow, it'd be easy to book that plumber next time you need to do a maintenance call at your property. If they can't do this, well then that's kind of a concern. And then number two is if they don't call and confirm, well, you've just saved your Friday night to spend quality time with your friends and family. So that's how I avoid all the no-shows because it can get quite prevalent as well.
You're just setting up the ground rule for the relationship, and not that you're band-aiding. It's just this is a mutually beneficial relationship, and you communicate with me, I communicate with you, and we'll have 100%. A very good relationship here, right? But if one party is disrespectful or the other, that's just maybe a telltale of what's going to happen down the road at the same time, right?
Totally.
So go ahead, please. I mean to cut you off.
I was just going to say, so now you're at the viewing. And going back to what you said, Russell, having a well-maintained property, your curb appeal is your first thing. When they pull up to that property, that first 20 seconds is crucial to start that interview. But it's a two-way interview. It's a dialogue between you and them to make sure you're both a good fit for each other. If your property looks dilapidated, if I say that right, or unkept lawn, the door's falling off the hinges, or it's really hard to open, you're not setting a very good impression. And then that just foreshadows, or we assume if this property is like this from the front, what else has not been maintained? And if you're finding you're not getting a lot of applications or application requests at the viewing, there's probably a disconnect there, or perhaps part of the conversation on how you're having it. I break up my viewing into the beginning. I re-ask all the same questions from my pre-screening. And you might go, well, that's kind of silly. Why would you ask the same thing you already asked them once in the phone call? Well, I want to make sure the answers are actually consistent over a period of time. If someone's trying to be mischievous or ill intent and they're trying to sell me misinformation, the chances of them keeping their information or facts straight over a period of time is pretty hard. And so if I get variations in the answers, I'm going to dig in further and see why. Yeah. But if it's all checks out, that's perfect. And then about the middle of my viewing is I'm doing my salesmanship. I'm selling the property and I'm understanding their needs. I'm asking them why they want to rent in this area. What are they looking for? Why are they moving? And find ways to make sure my property matches well. Nice. And then at the end of the interview, I'm setting expectations. I'm talking about systems, how utilities are managed, what the next step is, if there's pets allowed or any particulars of the property. I'm showing up there's systems in place, how to share laundry. Hey, by the way, when you move in, I'll send an email between you and the tenant. You guys pick your own laundry hours, so there's no disagreement. Okay, tenant, you're going to do the backyard and shoveling. Well, then they'll shovel the front sidewalk. You talk about all these things, because then now you're avoiding common pitfalls of pain points that tenants have probably had in the past. And if you're having this conversation before they've even asked for the application, it's pretty sweet. And then my last step is, do I offer the application or not? What do you do, Russell? I don't know. I know you play all sorts of stuff.
To be honest, I as a landlord, how am I going to say this? Not saying this anybody's right or wrong. I just, based upon my time involvement or my commitment or what I do best, maybe that's the best, is my lane is I just get my property manager to do all this stuff, and then they present me with the detailed summary of all that stuff you talked about, and then I make a decision at that time, right? So
awesome.
I'll speak from. Here's the thing: is I would be a horrible at doing that, because I probably don't have the patience for it in many respects. And then I had the brainstorm one time. I go, well, I'll just ask my wife. She can be our property manager and vet all this kind of stuff. And then I sat there and I go, the divorce would be more costly than what it would cost for me to hire a manager at the same time. And I'd never be able to. My wife would never love me again after that, right? So. Treat it like a business.
That's a great point you make, though, is outsource what you're not good at. Don't make the business painful where you don't want to be in it any longer. Life's too short for that. Yep. So I think that's awesome, Russell, that you know what you're good at, and so stick to it. So basically, I don't ever offer an application out, because everyone's polite here in Canada. Everyone's going to accept your application. You don't know if they're really invested or not. If they go and ask me they go, great, MacKenzie, they're asking me questions about like the size of the bedroom. And if they're asking really specific questions around the property as you're doing your viewing, you've got a really genuine, interested party that wants to rent from you, because now they're thinking in their head, okay, my couch can fit here. This could be the kids' room, or I can put my my work from home office over here. They're trying to make it work. And then they ask you for an application, they want to move to the next step. Yep. If they go, great, thanks, they don't ask a lot of questions and they don't ask for an application, don't chase them, let them go. You've had a cold lead. Don't waste your time following them up. Focus your time and energies on the leads that are truly interested. So that's why I never offer an application.
Ooh, I was sitting there before we got going. I was just like, man, you're still just bringing the fire, my brother, right? We gotta keeping the fire going, and then obviously bombs start happening. I do want to be mindful and respectful of your time here. I do have a couple questions that I want to delve into a little bit. But honest to goodness, we could go 17 more different directions. We could book 17 more of these conversations. And as you can tell, MacKenzie knows what he's talking about here. But I want to ask you a question about the following. So you've been featured into some media, and there was your latest one on CBC, and the view that you had there. And I remember when I had my first couple media times, honest to goodness, it scared the out of me, and I absolutely just the bed a couple times myself.
Yeah.
How's been the process been for you? I just want to, if you have time now, it's been a few days, it's been a week. I imagine.
I'm glad you're asking this.
You're a high performer. You're a high performer, and I know you want to be the best at everything you do. If you were to give yourself some feedback and coaching, how would you rate your performance on the social media media channel so far?
Well, and just to give this context, Russell, so first interaction was last year. It wasn't very positive. It wasn't bad either. I honestly, I got away with a paper cut, like just nothing crazy. But when I clicked on that link to open up that Edmonton Journal article last year, I never shook so much and had an adrenaline rush just to read something. It was crazy, So having that was good. I fortunately had some really good people that I could reach out to that had experience to help me craft the right answer to be on point and accurate. So went through that. I've had 5 interviews now, 2 pre-interviews for the CBC pieces, one for each interview, and then City News. They also interviewed me on Friday. I don't know if I ever got featured in that article or not. They're talking about tenant tips, but I had even, and every interview, well, at least the CBC ones, there's a curveball question that is like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. It throws you off. And I knew that was coming the second time because I've been through the process, and it still caught me live on air if you watch that live interview on the news network. And I guess it's been good. I enjoy it now. I used to fear it last year. I was uncomfortable. Now I'm like, I'd love an opportunity to showcase the facts and help get good policy, not vote-getting policy, to really steward our industry and move forward. Because it's a highly regulated industry, and rightfully so, because we're talking about shelter, which is a basic human right. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to just give you some advice, some of the best advice I had on media training, and I've done some media training over that as well. Is the best advice I was given was have your talking points and have the messages and the points that you want to get across. And almost no matter what question they ask, you have to find a way to pivot your answer to your points. And
that question I got hung up on would have been exactly that, because I had a whole stat laid out.
Yeah, and if you have that, and it's almost like and the skill set that the person encouraged me to do at the same time was learn improv in certain respects, like meaning they offer you something, you build off of it, but you eventually get it to be your point and your talking point back to them to get your point across at the end. And it's tough. It's one of those ones especially if you're not used to it. And, sometimes someone else has an agenda. They have their own agenda, and you need to have your talking points. You need to have your agenda. And it's just a practice doing the reps of turning your answer into your talking point. And I could totally see at the same time when you had that conversation, the person from CBC, they called you MacKenzie Hughes a couple times. So I was like, oh man, how's that for, you sit there going, who's he talking to? It's like, and just for...
I was so focused. I heard, I'm like, oh, I don't care. I'll deal with that later. And I was like, okay, ask me that first question. I'm like chomping at the bit to go. But I'm actually glad you went down this, right? I know that a good mutual, I'd say, mentor in the industry, a senior economist that is definitely living his why now. I think I remember you saying somewhere that he did public speaking training. Is this the same coach that you're talking about?
Well, this was I do, and I actually have a podcast episode with Jesse James as one of the people. But this was also, some of that advice was also from Les Hewitt, Power of Focus author, who gave a lot of that tips and training as well. Because here's the thing: is the media does have their intention and where they want to get to. And honest to goodness, some days I sit there and I go, if you're ever a fan or know who Jordan Peterson is and the way he's portrayed and stuff like that out it's like, holy macaroni. It's tough out there, right? And in some cases, it's almost just no thanks, I'll take a pass this time on it. But it's good for you. Like I'm here to tell you 100%. Congratulations and props and a huge applause for you for stepping up, and that takes some cojones. And I'm very proud of you for stepping up and stepping into that. And that's what leaders do. And you're a true leader in this community, my friend. True leader, you are. So
thank you, Russ. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. So do I have a commitment from you for you and I to have another couple conversations down the road about deepening some of these things that we're talking about here today?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. But I do have a final 2 questions. Okay. What's next for you? What's the vision for you? What MacKenzie Wilson? What in 3 to 5 years? And we're gonna put ourselves out there, and we're looking back.
Love it.
What has happened in 5 years for you that you would make yourself feel very proud of what you've done over the next 5 years?
We've taken the risk of renting for both mom and pop landlord and tenants, and just through really good best practices embedded through the technology and flows. That would be my huge thing. So that's a SingleKey kind of conversation. And because a lot of what's going on right now can actually just be avoided with processes. But if you don't know what you don't know, they're just landmines you're waiting to step on. So if we can guide the mom and pop landlord down this right path, and tenants as well to protect themselves, again, talking about the recent CBC article, it's a win for everyone. It's better for the industry. And I think the onus is on the citizen or the society to look after each other without the least amount of government involvement that we need. Yep. I think the private citizen is much more engaged and motivated, and will probably do a far more proficient job than waiting for someone else. Sorry, and I digress. And where I'm going with this is, I would love to be one of the voices in the community to help steward us forward. I think the onus is on us as landlords to be the stewards of this rental industry. We're in the business typically longer than most tenants. We'll see more tenants than a tenant will see in terms of landlords. So there's an onus on us to put the right foot forward, set the right impression, help everybody else get through this industry and get to what they need.
Nice. Now, before I do ask the final question that I'm going to do is I just want to offer you something. I just wanted to just thank you on behalf of the entire rental housing provider community for taking it on the chin in certain respects, like for getting out there and doing some of the hard work, doing some of the heavy lifting. It's pretty easy for some of us to sit back and go, holy moly, look at me in my ivory tower. You know, MacKenzie's doing all that hard work. You and there's another lady out in Ontario, Kayla Andrade, and she's doing some heavy lifting out in Ontario as well. And I just from the entire community, and I know some days it feels thankless and it feels very difficult, and all you're doing is a bunch of crap, and it just doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And I'm just, from me as a leader within the community, I'm just giving you a big salute, and I keep going. You got this, brother. Okay, just as an FYI.
Let's do it, bud.
Okay, final question. Somebody's sitting here and they're listening or they're watching and they're feeling a little stuck. This is kind of my ending question I always have is, what are some wise, sage words from MacKenzie Wilson to help somebody who's just kind of feeling a little stuck in the process? And what would be some next steps that you would encourage them with?
Russell, I still deal with that problem even today. If you are your own worst enemy, and I find when I am not in an environment surrounded with people that were, making changes, having these kind of conversations, Russell, sharing best practices, getting that third-party confirmation that you are doing the right thing, self-doubt creeps in so quickly, and it can completely immobilize you. And, I still today have those days. So but I at least now have gotten to a point where I am, what's the right word? I'm aware, or I can, there's a word, and awareness. There's a better way to describe it. Self-aware.
You're mindful. Yep. So self-awareness.
Yeah. Where I can go and do some stuff at work or just be a part of it. And it's a little bit tough too, because SingleKey is based out of Toronto. I'm the lone wolf out west here. I'm the only employee out here in Western Canada. So I work from home, but it's surrounding yourself with people that are doing things. They're action takers. Even if you understand all the steps they're doing, they haven't really shared any advice with you. Just that mindset to keep you moving forward, and action and execution is everything. The perfect idea is nothing if it's never put into practice.
Nice.
So that's my thing, is just find that support group, because it will help you so much.
Yeah, and it's a quote of Larry the Cable Guy, get her done. Right. Well done, my
Love
friend.
it.
Yeah, you are very well spoken. You're very articulate, and you're wise beyond your years, my friend. So, all right, gang, everybody, have yourself a wonderful day. This was a conversation with MacKenzie Wilson and myself on just some wonderful things that have been going on in the media, and also the rental housing provider and the client symbiotic relationship. All right, until the next one, everyone. Bye for now. Boom! If you'd like to see a few more videos like this, only a couple simple next steps from here. Number 1, subscribe. There will be a link right down here to hit that subscribe button. Make sure you don't miss an upcoming episode. And over here will be a hand-picked playlist and a video for you to watch to continue your journey forward. All right, let's go!